Chapter 8 of Tractate Sanhedrin covers further laws of court, here in regards to the laws of the wayward and rebellious son. The first Mishnah says, a ben soirer umayre, a wayward and rebellious son, refers to a boy who commits particular sins involving theft and gluttony, and will be described further. It's mostly mentioned in these verses from the Torah. The punishment for this was stoning. This only had application during particular stages of the boy's physical development, which are described as being from the boy growing 2 hairs until the point in time of physical development that there is hair grown around his genitals. It says scriptural sources. A minor does not have this apply to him, as he's not responsible for the commandments. The Gemara says, you might have thought that a minor does have application by this, and the person's being punished for the eventual outcome of his behavior. It particularly qualifies the signs of physical development that create this limited window where these laws apply. A rebellious son is also disqualified if he is a father. It debates if a minor boy is even physically capable of becoming a father. In fact, the entire window of time when a boy can be classified as a rebellious son is only within 3 months, so it's doubtful that it'd even be possible to father a child within this window. It debates as to what this refers to. It further argues on this. It agrees that cohabitation of a boy under 8 years old isn't even considered to be a legally significant act, and between 8 and 9 is debated from scriptural verses which imply, based on the accounting, that Haran had Sarah when he was 8 years old, meaning it would be physically possible in theory, but it debates this further from other verses. New Mishnah. A boy is liable for being a ben soirer umayra, a wayward and rebellious son, once he eats a tartamar, which is a very large measurement of meat, and drinks half a lug of Italian wine. Others say it's a mana of meat and a lug of wine. This doesn't count if it was eaten in certain circumstances, such as at a mitzvah gathering, at a meal to announce Elite Month, as a Meiser She'eni tithe, if it was non-kosher meat or untithed produce or unredeemed produce or anything that was specifically a mitzvah or a sin to eat, or it was any food that wasn't meat or any drink that wasn't wine. In all these instances, there would be no liability. The Gemara says, logically, a tartamar measurement would be half a mana. Additionally, for this liability to apply, it must be specifically with partially diluted wine and partially cooked meat. It cannot be salted meat, and it cannot be fresh wine. It qualifies the exact measurement. It speaks at length on the great negative effects of wine, particularly on Noah, who got drunk and his son Ham saw him. Some say his son castrated him so that way he wouldn't have a 4th son. Others say he also sodomized him. Some say that the tree of knowledge was a grapevine. Others say it was a stalk of wheat. Others say it was a fig tree. It discusses some further verses. Others add the rebellious son is only liable if he eats the meat and wine within a gathering of people of poor character, as long as it wasn't for a mitzvah. This doesn't apply if the meat was bird. It gives examples of mitzvah and sin meals to comfort mourners and eating on a public fast day, for example. New Mishnah. Another qualification, he is only this rebellious son if he specifically steals the food from his father and eats it in another man's domain. Others say he has to steal it from his father and mother. The Gemara qualifies these points as to why it needs to be this case. Specifically, New Mishnah, the boy is only liable for being a rebellious son if both his father and mother are willing to prosecute him for this. Others add he cannot be liable if his mother wasn't allowed to be married to his father. The Gemara explains this last point. It actually means that they need to physically look similar in voice, appearance, and height for him to be able to be liable as a rebellious son. Based on all of these details, some say it was essentially impossible for there to ever have been a ben soirer umayra, a wayward and rebellious son, who would be liable for capital punishment. Others say he knew of one particular case where this had actually occurred. It similarly says that there was never a case of a city that was subverted to idolatry. It's debated if there was ever an actual case of a house whose walls were afflicted with tzara'as as described in Scripture. New Mishnah. Additionally, the rebellious son cannot be liable if either parent was missing a hand, or was lame, or was mute, or blind, or deaf. This is based on a number of verses. Additionally, if all of this occurs, the parents warn him before 3 and the court flogs him. For him to be liable for capital punishment, he needs to repeat it after this, and then be judged by a court of 23 that must include the original 3 judges. The Gemara tries to suggest from here that processes and verses need to be carried out precisely as described. We say that this is unique here as the verse is redundant. The parents actually need to warn him before 2 witnesses. It cites some scriptural sources. New Mishnah. If the boy ran away before he was judged and he reached his stage of physical development past his limited window, if he had fled before the verdict was reached, he'd still be liable. The Gemara says, related, if a non-Jewish person blasphemes and then converts to Judaism, he's exempt from any liability. It brings sources for these points and debates them. New Mishnah. A rebellious son, if he fulfills all of these criteria, is judged due to what he'll eventually become, so that way he should die while he's innocent. The death of the wicked is beneficial to them and the world, while for the righteous, it's detrimental to them and the world. It also says wine and sleep, along with dispersal, are beneficial to the wicked, and the world, but detrimental for the righteous and the world. But assembly and tranquility for the righteous are beneficial to them and the world, unlike by the wicked. The Gemara additionally qualifies these points. New Mishnah. A burglar tunneling into a house is judged based on what he'll eventually do. If the burglar broke a barrel while breaking in, if the burglar in that circumstance is allowed to be killed, he's exempt for paying for the barrel. The Gemara says the presumption is people would defend themselves in their house, so if somebody's breaking into a house, they're prepared to kill anybody inside, and accordingly the person is allowed to kill anybody that's trying to kill him. It debates if such a burglar is exempt for stealing the actual barrels. It discusses some particular incidents. It is agreed that a person can kill an ordinary burglar. If a person is burgling from his son, if the son knows the father will kill him, he's allowed to kill him first. Otherwise, he cannot. A tunneling burglar can even be killed on Shabbos. If, for instance, debris fell on somebody's father tunneling into his son's house on Shabbos, he cannot kill him, and he's actually allowed to violate the Shabbos to save him. Additionally, this doesn't only apply to somebody tunneling into somebody's house. This would also apply if he was coming in through a roof or otherwise. Tunnels were just mentioned as they were a bit more common. If a minor tries to kill somebody, the person is allowed to defend himself and kill the attacker. As this opinion holds, you don't need to warn somebody pursuing you. However, this opinion does not hold that a mother can abort her child if it will kill her. It debates sources. New Mishnah. A person is allowed to kill a man who is trying to kill him or somebody else, or trying to violate a male or a female. You don't kill a person to stop them from doing bestiality or for desecrating Shabbos or doing idolatry. The Gemara said scriptural sources. There's an additional obligation to save somebody's life if they're drowning or being attacked by animals. These points are additionally qualified. It's discussed if a woman is being violated and she requests that it be allowed so that way she won't be killed, she cannot be rescued if it'll result in her dying. This is debated. It qualifies these points further and cites a few disputing opinions. Generally, a person should rather sin than be killed, besides for the sins of committing idolatry, cohabiting immorally, or killing another person. This applies when the government isn't actively trying to make decrees to end Torah observance. If they are, a person should die rather than give up any commandment, if in public at least, with 10 Jewish people present. Queen Esther was allowed to impermissibly cohabit with King Ahasuerus, either as she was completely passive in the act, or because it was done for his own personal desire. It said these principles apply with the 7 Noahide laws too. It cites a particular case where a man was so obsessed with a woman that he began dying, and the doctor said he should cohabit with her, but it was said that it was a form of forbidden relations, so he couldn't. And she wasn't even permitted to stand before him unclothed or similar. Marriage wouldn't have worked there, as it said that since the temple was destroyed, the enjoyment of intimacy was taken from marriage and given to sinners. And that's the end of chapter 8.